or I'm a sexual narcoleptic. We should move on. Afro slices Okiku's data. There can only be one Afro. More importantly, Ninja implores Afro, as he does every episode, to turn back around. This show is getting pretty crazy after all. Having a character to place doubt in the mission and care for Afro is a necessity, and they make a special point here to show Afro telling him to shut up. This time it isn't too funny though. Ninja's reaction to being shut down reveals that he knows he shouldn't push on the subject this time. Fortunately, Brother One is here for the comic relief. He springs an attack and dies off screen. Top floor, the same plateau Afro's father died on. There's an argument that Afro Samurai is just amazing character designs without much else, and while I consider that a fact,
Yo, buddy, you still alive?
those character designs are really good. Ninja's character at this point transitions very swiftly from a comedic pessimism and Tom and Jerry antics into gentle concern and doubt at the perils ahead, despite everything they've seen so far, or perhaps because of it. A mirrored shot of Afro's Gator Jays from the first episode is used to show he is just as resolute as he was then, reminding us of how that battle nearly ended in a draw. He once again turns against his doubts and confronts what blocks his path to justice. The path is gated by a torii, a Japanese archway that symbolizes a transition from worldly to spiritual. You'll see it mostly in temples. In order to ascend, Afro must confront Robbie the Rabbit's crack-slinging cousin and everything that represents to him. And, the music, man. That the real soundtrack was never put to CD it's frustrating. The mix is very tailored to this build-up. The drums flare to raise the tension as Kuma draws his swords, and the bass line introduces itself when he takes his first step forward. Despite everything else going to the beat, once Kuma charges, the drum set feigns losing tempo as Afro is put on the back foot, refusing to engage. Examples of the dynamic music mixing are all the way through this scene and others. The RZA is an incredible artist. This plateau being the same one Afro's father died on, the confrontation on it is also mirrored. Afro takes the place of Justice in this fight. Despite being the one who's approached, he is the one charged, and he's forced into using his offensive weapon in uncharacteristically defensive ways. In this scene, Afro is likened to Justice, to his own personal villain. A detail that might also be lost under the snow is all these very makeshift, uncountable piled Shinto gravestones. Snow in many works is used to represent repressed trauma and depression. Memories are buried underfoot by a numbing cold attitude. Things left undealt with, poorly so. The snow won't last forever. All the graves around him will be visible once it lets up. This teddy bear head once belonged to the late Otsuru, and the twin swords and Yuri Lowenthal voice acting belonged to Jino, Afro's prospective older brother. The black robes bring to mind traditional Shinto funeral attire. The ghost of Afro's past has come to haunt him, and it cries from beneath its mask. What has to be my favourite part of this fight is Afro's retreat into the Torii Gate. Where this music video picks up some guitar and you hear the softer patterning of his cushion geta, contrasting the stark wood-on-wood beats of Jino's geta. All the way through there's been incredible sound design.
But you just look like an afro-headed coward.
I cannot believe I just saw an overflowing kettle of tears call a pothead black. Afro's defense isn't quite enough and we flash back to confirm all our suspicions. Swordmaster did indeed just quote Musashi Miyamoto directly, and it is Jino in the mask as well. They say Miyamoto created the two-sword stance, though others argue it was only poetics that you should utilize all of yourself. Jino does in fact use two swords though, and all its advantages. He dedicated this knowledge and talent to protecting the orphanage from attackers, and Afro from his own actions. He's killing number 2 assassins still, trying to find out the headband's location. Afro's lacking strength put him in an inherent disadvantage until Jino came along to tag in. As he says, Jino can attack and defend at once, even with 2 wooden katana, and he proves himself to think on his feet. They kebabbed the final dude and asked him for the precious information.
Number 2 is quite near.
Too much information. After rinsing their faces and getting Afro a sip of lemonade, Jino confronted Afro about his revenge quest. Jino phrases it as Afro living his own life with his new family, rather than the empty life of revenge. This is the fundamental choice Afro had to make. The next scene foreshadows that choice. The kids talk about how they'll probably be dead in 20 years and how they should value life while it's still there. Each one gets an opportunity to show off their goofy, likable personalities. Afro asked Otsuru what she wanted as her last meal. The dumb kid said she wanted those fireworks. I guess she got what she wanted that night. A samurai sword rearranging their guts. Seems Swordmaster is hitting the town himself. Not only had word gotten out about that, but also that the same Swordmaster now owned the number 2 headband. Not that he'll ever admit it. Suddenly we have a trajectory for our tragedy. Otsuru sleepily tugged Afro's foot before he could confront Swordmaster, cuddling the same teddy Gino later dons as a mask. It's a reminder of the division in his heart. Now his choice truly was between his old father and his new family. After graduating Swordmaster's training, Afro finally asked the old man if he was the number 2. His only response is setting a meeting place, under the full moonlight we associate with Afro's Yang association to Justice's Yin. There, Swordmaster confronted Afro about his choice. Friends, joy, love, gone in the pursuit of revenge, and the bloodshed that follows the pursuit of the number 1's power. A forfeit of his life, even if he remains alive. And an example of that bloodshed played out before him now. They were ambushed by headband hunters, and Swordmaster takes on a mist of mofos, taking increasing damage as their numbers fail to thin. The rest of the students couldn't stand idly by, and they took up arms to defend him, ultimately to their brutal demise. It's a gory mess, named children being cut down left and right. This has to be the second worst day of these orphans' lives. Gino in the midst of it has the opportunity to take in that all of his family is dead, even mistaking Otsuru as a victim. And he makes a last-ditch stand. Afro joined the fight too late to begin with, and definitely now. Even witnessing the loss of everyone who loved him, his mind only sears with the hatred for the loss of his father, witnessing Swordmaster request the final challenge. The gentleman raises his sword into a strong yet vulnerable stance, and closed his eyes as Afro